everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coast Connections. Are you feeling a little bit down this time of year? Are you struggling a little bit with some seasonal affective disorder with all this darker weather we're having? We're here to talk today about your mental health and wellness and what you can do to bolster that, especially during this time of year. And joining us on set, we have the pleasure of welcoming Taryn O'Flanagan. Hello, Taryn.
Hi.
Taryn's from the Vancouver Island Mental Health Society. Thanks
right.
for joining us tonight, Taryn.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So why is this time of year a bit more difficult for us to, for our mental health and wellness and our emotional health? What are some of the factors that are contributing to that for us?
Well, I mean, the first and foremost is usually a lack of vitamin D and sunlight, which we tend to experience here out on the West Coast. Also, I think the prolonged darkness is really difficult. It's when we're bright and there's a lot of light, we get energized, we get outside more. So when the weather's tough and we're not getting out and doing the things that we love to do, it can really wear on our mental health.
Plus those post-holiday bills are probably pouring in as well, and the reality of some of the things that we may have overspent on causes stress this time of year as well.
Yeah, stress is a big part of how well we're managing with our mental health, and so if we're feeling high stress, that'll often bring upon other symptoms and distress for a person.
And our mental health and wellness is, there's about 1 in 5 Canadians that suffer from a mental illness or a mental disorder, and 1 in 3, I think you said, every year.
1 in 5 every year. And 1 in 3 Canadians in their lifetime. When we talk about those statistics, we're not necessarily meaning illness or disorder, but that 1 in 5 Canadians this year will experience a mental health problem, which could mean they are experiencing more distress or more difficulty coping with their daily living than they normally would.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in our show today. So let's talk a little bit about how we can winterproof our mental health. What are some of the steps we can take?
Well, believe it or not, one of the best medicines is activity, right? So any sort of exercise, even if it's walking around a mall or somewhere inside if we can't get out, that's one of the primary ways of coping, is just to get ourselves moving and to get our blood flowing through our bodies. Activities that we enjoy, so sometimes when the weather is down and we're feeling down, it's really difficult to feel motivated. So if we can schedule activities that we enjoy, and just make sure that we have a good routine in place and we prepare for that ahead of time, and then do our best to stick to that even when we're feeling like it's not the easiest thing to do today. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
You mentioned vitamin D as well. You can get that from the sunlight when we can find it.
That's right.
And also from, if you increase fish and fish oil perhaps into your diet, a little bit more of that. Milk is a good source of vitamin D. And what about some of those lights that you can get that mimic full spectrum daylight?
Yeah, so you can get UV lights at most local drugstores close to anybody. They come in a variety of different sizes, and so some folks may put them on their desks, in their offices. If their offices tend to be darker or there's no windows, you can have them in your bedroom. You can even get them on your book, and it'll kind of, when you're reading, it'll give you that source of vitamin D that your body's obviously craving. Yeah.
And with activities too, if you can, it's best to get outside and be in nature, because just the healing power of nature, walking through a forest or by a stream or by the ocean, does a lot for endorphins and dopamine and things in the brain. So things like that people can do too.
Yeah, and that's why I say for somebody coming into the winter season or even being here now, think about some of the things that you love to do that excite you, even music, meditation, yoga. There's lots of indoor activities that people can do as well. But write down those activities that are pleasure building and set them into your weekly schedule to just make sure that you have something to look forward to and that's going to make you feel refreshed.
Yes, exactly. Something to look forward to, someone to do it with, and something to do.
That's right. There's also ways around your house that you can get more sunlight. So if brightening up if you can, some of your decor, making sure your drapes are open. If there's bushes that are hindering sunlight from coming into your home, there's ways to do that as well. And I always encourage even the folks that I work with to at least get outside for a bit of fresh air a couple of times a day. So if you're working in an office-like setting, just get out, have a few breaths, get a little bit of sunlight or daylight, and refresh yourself again.
Yeah, it's amazing what a stress reducer that can be, just to get out, your blood pressure drops, you just come back a little more refreshed and able to handle some of the rigors and daily things of life. Yeah. But for people who are going through, who are prone to a more serious issues, I know the Vancouver Island Mental Health Society is here to help. So what are some of the programs and services that you offer for people that may be going through addiction issues or depressive disorders and that type of thing? Let's talk a little bit about some of the services that you provide for addiction recovery, perhaps.
Okay, so we consider a substance use or an addiction part of mental health, right, and often classify that as a disorder as well. So many of the folks that we provide services to may be experiencing both of those challenges at the same time. One of our longest standing programs is our Gateway House, which is a psychosocial rehabilitation facility. And so we provide a safe and supportive place for individuals who are struggling with their day-to-day living, gain back the life skills and independence that they need to live in the community independently. We also have a second stage supported housing program that it's a shared living accommodation, and so if somebody's really struggling, they can move into one of our houses, and we'll provide them with the support and goal planning and outreach that they need in order to move from that into independent housing as well.
And do you also provide support to the family of that individual as well?
Absolutely. That's a big part of what we find is part of somebody's success, is including the family and the friends and the supports that are really going to be there with the individual along the way. And so we do a lot of family conferencing and educating the families on what their loved ones are going through and ways that they can take care of their own mental wellness while they support the person that they care about.
Care for the caregiver, that's very important, isn't it? And sometimes that's something we overlook. It can be very overwhelming living with a person who has some kind of disorder or addiction, and it'd be easy to get sucked down with that. So there's ways, what are some of the ways that a person who is living with someone who is struggling with that type of thing, how can they care for themselves? What are some of the things they can do?
Well, again, it's about making sure that they have a life that is meaningful, that they've got a lot of activities to look forward to, that they are still doing things within their personal life, and if they have a career, that they're continuing to maintain those important aspects. Setting good boundaries in terms of how much a loved one can give is really important, so not giving up on the things that are important to them or compromising that all of the time. And more importantly, making sure they have the support, people to talk to, people around them that they can talk about their challenges that they're having, and encouraging them to keep taking care of themselves.
Yeah, that's very, very important, because you can't really care for someone else if you're not caring for yourself. And it may sound selfish, but you have to really invest in yourself in order to be able to be in that healthy state, to be of help to somebody else.
Be an effective caregiver.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about why we still have here in 2018, we still have this stigma around mental health and emotional health issues. It's still a topic. It's getting better. We're talking more about it, but it's still a topic that people sort of reel from and try and bury in the family. Or so how can we change the language around that? How can we help that stigma to disappear? What are some of the things, Taryn, we can do?
Well, first and foremost, the media has always kind of been bringing to light often mental health issues in a way that is negative. And so, as you mentioned, we are getting better at being able to talk about mental health and mental wellness. One of the biggest anti-stigmas for me in my experience has just been about talking about mental health, and not just about illness, but talking about wellness and how do we preserve that, right? And so making it a topic of conversation every day about how I'm staying physically well and I'm staying mentally well, or I'm striving towards that. I think encouraging people to share their stories and thanking them for giving you the privilege of being able to hear what they've been through, celebrating people's successes, looking at the resiliency in people who have experienced a mental health problem is all ways that we can work towards that. And education is a really important piece that our organization believes in and that I believe in, and so the more that people understand and know about mental health, the less stigmatizing the topic can be.
Yes. And the more empathy and patience you can build for yourself if you educate yourself and your family about what some of these issues are, what people struggle with. I know in our own family, my own family has been touched by suicide. My husband's family has been touched by suicide. And those were issues a long time ago that were not talked about. And it was something that was put into lockdown. We simply did not, there wasn't space to talk about it. There wasn't language to talk about it. But these things come out later in life. And they have to be dealt with, like nothing stays buried. And one way or another, these issues do have to talk about. And I think there's no better remedy than human connection, than someone to listen and a safe place to talk about things. So I'm really happy to see that the tide is changing here with not only what your folks are doing, but globally as well. The Prince or the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have that movement that they're doing in the UK, Heads Together. And they are doing tremendous work to sort of break down the stigma of this globally. So it's really nice to see people of their stature coming out with this issue and promoting it. It's really good for everybody.
And sharing examples of how they, an individual or their loved ones have gone through something challenging and been able to get through that, and how they did that, I think, is really changing the tune in which we look at mental health.
Exactly. So you also have something very interesting. I'd never heard of this before till we chatted the other day, but mental health first aid. Let's chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the mental health first aid course comes through Mental Health First Aid Canada, which is a spin-off of the Mental Health Commission of Canada, so they support the program. What it is a 12-hour course in which we teach our participants about the most common mental health problems and mental health illnesses, and then we provide our participants with an opportunity to know what's the best way to approach somebody who's experiencing that type of problem, and also ways that we can support them in getting the resources and the supports that they need to overcome that. And so it's a really great program. I've done it a variety of times throughout Vancouver Island, and just educating anybody who's interested about mental health and putting them in the driver's seat to be able to help others as they meet new people who may be struggling.
And I think it's a 12-hour course.
It's 12 hours, so it's two 6-hour days of instruction. And then we offer a mental health first aid for adults who interact with youth, and that's a 14-hour course, so that's 2 7-hour days.
And these courses are for the layperson. It's not for a professional like yourself who's in the field of mental health issues, but it could be for a family member or any of us to take those courses?
Absolutely, and even to say it's not for a clinician, I learned something when I first took the course as well. So there's always ways in which we can do better practice, and so we've had a variety of different audiences. We've had professionals that are in the field, we've had educators, we've had construction managers, human resource managers, family members, individuals themselves who are struggling, who are wanting to learn more about what could be going on. So we encourage anybody who wants to be a helper and wants to support their fellow person to take the course.
Very interesting. And we've got your website up on the screen, vimhs.org, and there's more information there about how people can sign up for it and upcoming dates for the course as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we put everything on our website so that if there's any services or workshops that we're offering, then they can contact us directly to enroll.
Let's talk a little bit about the Bell Canada. Let's talk bell.ca. Is that something that your organization is also working with?
Yeah, we definitely believe in this movement and believe in what Bell is doing, and we support Bell, and also our People First Media will often include Bell Let's Talk in some of our postings that we put on Facebook.
And it's nice to see that some of these people from some celebrities like Mary Walsh and Catherine Hughes, I think it is, Clara Hughes, pardon me, are all helping to promote that message as well.
Yeah, and it's an important message because the reality of it is that mental health or challenges with mental health affect us all. It's not any one person that will experience this. At some point in our life, we're going to experience a mental health problem, and it's just really great to see people coming forward and talking about their success.
Exactly. And the problem is with that as well is if you have a physical, problem, if you have a broken arm or, if you're fighting off some kind of disease, there's a lot of empathy out there. People will bake a casserole and bring it over, or bring you some cookies or a card or some flowers. It's very different if you're suffering internally and people can't, see what you're actually going through. So if you see someone that you think might be struggling with some mental health, problems or some emotional problems, what are some of the things that you can say to that person to help draw that out without feeling, it's like, hey, what's the matter with you? What are some of the more gentle, kinder ways that we can encourage that dialogue?
Well, I think that takes time. We want to be able to build some sort of a relationship with somebody, or hope that we, get to know them a little bit so they feel comfortable even being able to address that. I think it goes along with the anti-stigma conversations, like we said, talking about mental health and mental wellness and our own experience with that, rather than coming straight out and saying, hey, I'm noticing all these things are going on. Is there something wrong? Instead saying, things can be really difficult, and I've really had some challenges myself recently, and here's some examples of that. I'm really focusing on preserving my mental wellness because that's very important for me to stay healthy, and so here's some of the things that I'm going to do that. And so conversations like that might encourage people who are struggling to say, maybe openly talk about what's going on, or reflect a little bit about what they can possibly do for themselves as well, and make it a natural conversation that we can have without there being any negative feelings attached to it, I guess, or shame.
Or shame, exactly. It's very shame-based. That is breaking down, but it's like, or if there's an issue in your family, it's like a family shame that you try and hide as well, rather than, sharing it or having the language around how do you actually bring this out and talk about it. So, just going out for a cup of coffee, sitting down, having that conversation with people, and just, how are you doing? And not being afraid to do that, not being afraid to bring this type of language to the conversation, I think is really important.
And helping people to understand that it's a very common challenge that a lot of people have. And I have these conversations with my closest friends and family, and they're coming from a place of fear around what could be going on, and we really kind of normalize the fact that everybody has difficult times. Some people become ill as a result of that, but there is hope, and as long as we have hope and we have good support, we can overcome these sort of things.
It's interesting too, Taryn, at this time of year, everybody gets flu shots, but we sort of need that mental health booster shot as well, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely, that would be great.
And I think conversations and, empathy and kindness are all, ingredients that would go into that booster shot.
That's right. Yeah. And it feels good to support somebody and give them a hand, it really does. And so even, one of the greatest things I've noticed about the people that I've worked with in this field, the clients that I've worked with, is that the number one thing they have in common is their drive to help others, and how that really helps to sustain how they feel about themselves and their motivation to be well. And so it's really quite a beautiful thing to witness.
It is. And helping others and giving, actually there's a biological element to that, isn't there?
There is,
yeah, the dopamine in the brain, the
Your
neurotransmitters.
reward system lights up, right? And you feel really good about yourself and what you're doing.
So it's amazing, isn't it, how it all works, together that way.
Yeah.
And speaking of giving back and volunteering, what kind of opportunities would there be at your organization for people to volunteer?
We're always looking for volunteers. We've got quite a large organization and a lot of people that could use extra support, and so we like to work with our volunteers to find out what their interests and passions are, and then we try to align them in the programs that best fit with their interests and what they feel they can give. And then, so we've had gardening volunteers, we've had activity volunteers, we've had people who just come in and provide some support. So yeah, we'd love to just sit down and have a conversation about, what people would like to do and how we can help make that happen. We also are always looking for people to join as members in our organization. We really value our members and want to include as much of the community as we can.
Very good. People First Media, that's another service that you have there.
Yeah, so People First Media is very unique, I think, and it's very unique for a nonprofit organization. And so it used to be People First Radio, but we've now started looking at reaching out to people through social media, so Facebook, Twitter, post a lot of relevant articles and information across the province and globally that come out, and just share the information with people. And we also get information from other interviews and share those with the community as well. So it's really great. We're really proud of it, and it's our way of, again, talking about mental health on a daily basis in a positive way, and just not being afraid to shy away from the topic.
Exactly. For anybody that's struggling with an addiction issue, is it the 12-step program that you also encourage through your organization? Is that part of the recovery program?
Our recovery programs are very individual. It depends on what program works for the person. And so we try to determine what sort of theory is going to work, what people can understand, what makes sense to them. So we have many folks who will get support through 12-step programs, and others through SMART recovery programs, and also individual counseling services.
What's the SMART recovery program?
SMART recovery is a non-secular sort of program, so they don't focus on a 12-step or a spiritual element. They just focus more on skill building for recovery. And so what are some coping skills that I need to develop, and teaching those and working as a group to support each other in achieving their goals.
Yeah. Good. And what are some of the success stories that you've seen? People coming through Gateway House? Maybe just chat a little bit about Gateway.
Yeah, so we've had folks who have come to Gateway House who have had a real difficult time just living independently at all, and through institutions and hospitals. And we've had several success stories where we've seen folks come through our program, go into our supported housing, and then now living independently with good supports, working, going back to school. Just for the first time in their lives, they've really got a good handle on things.
Do some of those folks come back and volunteer with you?
They come back and visit, they call in, they let us know what's happening. Some may volunteer with the organization. Yeah.
Issues around LGBTQ too? Are those things that you handle there at your organization?
Well, I think it's definitely, we're an all-inclusive organization, and so we want to learn and educate ourselves more on how to best support any clients that come through our doors. Our People First Media is always, sending out information and sharing about the latest movements and success stories that there are out in our community and communities surrounding us. So.
Very good.
It's an important topic.
I like the inclusiveness of your organization and the community building that you're doing, and that just makes it better for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The more support that we all have, the better we are off individually as well. Yeah, exactly. Taryn, why do you do what you do?
Well, it's been a lot of years of me wanting to do what I do and loving what I do. I think it started as a young person and just feeling like there just wasn't enough support out there for young people. So when I was a teenager myself, and some close people in my life were struggling and not being able to talk about it or know where to get help. And so I was instantly had an interest in hearing people's stories and finding their strengths and encouraging them to do exactly what we know that they can do. And so it's been a really wonderful journey. I've had the privilege of meeting so many wonderful people and hearing so many great stories, and some challenging stories, but nevertheless it's a great human, it's a job that I get to come to work every day, but it's also a job that I get to say, I'm doing my part as a community member to support people. And
you're building bridges.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're building connection. And you know, there's no better healing power, I think, than the power of human connection.
Yes.
And we all have a role to play in that.
I do.
Yeah.
I agree.
You also mentioned earlier that you worked in corrections in the prison system. Yeah. How many years did you do that?
I was working in the mental health field for about 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting system, and there's a lot of improvements and good things happening, and so it's been great to see how many more opportunities are coming available, and how the focus is really on preserving and supporting people's mental health, and so those are some great changes we're seeing in that system.
Very good, because I would imagine that, you know, a lot of people who are in corrections are there as a result of mental health issues that, had they been addressed a little earlier, may not have resulted in some criminal activity.
Yes.
So it's all about building more empathy, more education, more understanding about this issue, and we really do appreciate what you're doing there, Taryn. And I think you're a wonderful ambassador for Vancouver Island Mental Health Society. And is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up today? Any
No.
upcoming events or anything you want us to know about?
We do have another mental health first aid course that's going to be running on March 12th and 13th in Nanaimo,
Okay.
and we will be posting. We're planning to do monthly courses ongoing from now.
Oh, every month. Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And you also have an office up in Campbell River now.
We do,
mentioned.
yes. We have a sobering assessment center that we operate in Campbell River, and that's we started that in July, so it's relatively new in that community.
Very good. And we have your website on the screen. We've got your phone number and a few other websites. There's one for, heretohelpbc.ca is also a good resource for people as well. So Taryn, thank you for coming in today. We wish you a very happy year, a very well year. Thanks for sharing with us today on how we can bolster and improve our mental health and those that are around us, our loved ones. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Coast Connections. Stay well, be well, and reach out and connect, build bridges out there. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the show.